This is Real Talk, the customer insights show with Jenn Vogel, a top-rated live stream and podcast in the market research and insights industry. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen on all major podcast channels. Join Jenn and her guests for a weekly discussion around topics that will help you understand your customers better. Real Talk is presented to you by VoxPopMe, the leader in video research and ranked number 1 in qualitative research by Grit 2 years running. Here's today's conversation.
Hello, insights professionals, marketers, and everyone who wants to understand their customers better. I'm your host, Jenn Vogel. Fans of professional football, or really any sport, have tons of opinions about the sport, their teams, everything related to the fan experience. Today, I'm joined by Washington Commanders president, Jason Wright, to discuss that topic. Jason himself directly reached out to fans for specific feedback before the season, is often seen talking with fans at games and other Commanders events. I'm really looking forward to hearing about his experience. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Really excited to have this chat. You know, people know about my opinions about football and my team, so we're not going to mention that today, despite the fact that you are the Commanders president. Really excited to talk.
You're forgiven.
Appreciate that. To get us started, can you just tell us a little bit about your thoughts on getting so involved with fan feedback? Like, why is that important for you specifically?
Well, I mean, there's two angles to it. The first just comes from the heart. And that's that when I got to this franchise, one of the things that really excited me about it was that this was truly a diverse fan base, a place where people of all ideologies, races, backgrounds, socioeconomic status, in a time where we have trouble coming together along those dimensions, still came together, high-fived, hugged in burgundy and gold. This is a very diverse area. And so I just wanted to hear all the different perspectives from our sets of fans, because I knew they'd all thought differently, just because of what I knew about market research and consumer psychology and stuff from my time as a consultant. And so I wanted to dive in and get a firsthand view. The other one was actually, quite mechanical and businessy. And it was that we had an endeavor to rebrand an iconic 90-year-old franchise. And it's irrespective of the broader public's perspective on the name, had a beloved name by our fan base, to our fan base. And so in order to even know where to start with that endeavor, we had to get one-on-one with individual fans. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to start figuring out who to talk to. And I was very specific about how I selected things. I didn't just randomly go across, but it's been incredibly fruitful for us, and we're starting to see the fruit of that now as our guest experience has improved. It's 180 degrees different than it was last year.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I talked to a lot of business leaders who, kind of say some similar things about the importance of this kind of feedback, but it's not as common for the president or the CEO or, we've got teams for that, right? We've got insights, marketing teams who are getting that fan feedback. Like, what's the difference, I guess, with you getting involved in the trenches with fans one-on-one?
I think what can happen as a senior executive is that things can come to you a bit overpackaged. The data comes back, or the first person insights come back very structured, very cleaned up. And that's a good thing for seeing common themes, for understanding where the volume is on some of the ideas or concepts. And it's great for making data-driven decisions, which we're all about in our culture. At the same time, when you're one-on-one with somebody, you get to hear the intonations in their voice. You get to see their facial expressions, get to hear that pregnant pause that happens in conversations. It allows me to ask follow-up questions, to have someone maybe say the same exact phrase, but it comes off differently because I hear the emotion behind it rather than having it show up in a word cloud. And for me, that firsthand experience was very important. And I wanted to start to put myself in the first person place of the fans, because, I played football for 7 years, but that wasn't the fan experience. And once you play in the league, you kind of become a little bit agnostic and you're a little bit of an anti-fan. You're like, who's going to pay me? right? And so, and so, and so it actually was helpful for me to start to think and feel like a fan again. Pull on my fandom of other sports and other things to try to get into the mind of our folks, because I think any organization is best off when the leader of that organization is channeling the mindset of the fan.
That's like the true definition of empathy. Like
Mhm.
put yourself right in their shoes and experience what they're experiencing and try to provide a better experience or improved experience, whatever the objective is. You've mentioned, so you played football for 7 years, then tell me about the time in between when you retired and when you joined the Commanders. Like
Sure.
you mentioned your time as a consultant.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was quite the journey, and it's challenging for everyone when they leave the NFL, because it's defined your life. Football's defined your life for, the better part for me, the better part of 25 years. I started playing when I was 7. I retired when I was 30. That's a lot to shift and change, and many guys struggle to make that transition. I did too in my own ways, but I had the benefit of being able to take a standardized test really well, which allowed me to go to business school and figure out what the hell I wanted to do with my life, as I transitioned from being a football player. And for me, it was always about finding a way to have bigger impact on the world. I come from a do-gooder family. I did a bunch of nonprofit social impact work while I was a football player, really focused on things like race and equity in society. And so I thought I need to go learn how to do this money thing, because they're the ones who really drive impact over time. The capitalist engine is what fuels all the stuff that I care about. And so I got there and I realized, man, these greedy people problems are really interesting. And maybe this is actually what I want to do is learn how to not be the person who takes the wealth, distributes it, figures out the right way to bring it into, real impact for the every person, but actually be the person who can generate that wealth to fund these endeavors and through a business itself, drive better social outcomes. And so I wanted to learn more, and I did what everybody does who doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up, and I became a consultant. And it was a great fit for me, though. McKinsey and Company really prides itself on leadership development and investing in raw talent. I was about as raw as it gets. I didn't know how to build a spreadsheet. I had never worked in PowerPoint before, but they saw something in me. And once I became a partner there, I had all of their resources, their well-deserved reputation as a sandbox to play in, and I was able to start to have impact on the things I cared about within that infrastructure. And then this beautifully came along serendipitously, and it hurt me to leave because I loved it there, but I love this job more.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. When talking about your experience with market research and how that, in that consulting area kind of gets you to how you operate today,
Yeah.
I think is really important, right? Like really understanding what people care about.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like consulting and the firm I was at in particular is maybe data driven to a fault, right? And for me, I got to have some information to even start to have the discussion. Like when I walk into a room and nobody has any data, nobody has any information, but we want to start opining on the direction of the business or a marketing campaign, I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? Like, what are we starting from? What is the basis for this verse, aside from like, I had a good idea in the shower, right? And so for me, that training in, even if the data is sparse, using it as as guideposts for a productive business conversation, for helping to check your ideas or your creativity, to make sure that it's going in a direction that you think is going to be profitable for the business or good for the fans or whatever it is. Data and information in general is necessary and required for that. And I actually was quite surprised at how little of that happens in sports and entertainment. And I think we've done really well, and our business resurgence is due in large part to us adapting not an overly draconian, but a properly fueled data-driven culture.
Yeah, that's so important. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. We're very data-driven ourselves. And the team, the franchise, you get a ton of feedback from all kinds of channels, structured, unstructured. How do you kind of sort through that and determine what you're going to use to make decisions and what you're maybe not?
This is a journey we're still on. I think, like everybody else. I actually wish we were more sophisticated in this, but we're on our way. We're on our way. I think there are sort of three sources of insight that we're able to gather. The first, the NFL writ large has created quite the unified database across all the NFL teams. That's one of the real benefits of the league office. And through those data and insights, we're able to leverage the insights that are specific to our team, to our market, to folks who have bought gear in our market, whatever it is. We're able to get their opinions on our team, on other teams, on the game itself, on their willingness to come to a game, all of that. So we're able to leverage that stuff, and we're able to do even targeted research within that database that they have. And so that's a very helpful thing for us to understand the macro factors across NFL fandom and specifically within our market. The second resource is the organic feedback that comes up through our social platforms, through letters that come in. This was especially prevalent during our rebrand process. And on that, we use social listening tools to help us, sift the wheat from the chaff. A shout out to one of our partner firms, Zoom, who does a fantastic job helping us to get decision quality information from the mess that is social media. And we're only scratching the surface of what we can do there. But it has driven a ton of value for our sponsors. It showed that the investment we've made in a first of its kind in the NFL property produced content studio is paying off for our sponsors. So it's been able to show us that our business decisions are in the right direction, but it's also been able to give us information on what our fans want to see. I'll give one example. It was through social listening that we learned our fans really wanted us to do behind the scenes content, like our own version of Hard Knocks. And we've created a series. Oh gosh, what is it called? Oh my gosh, they're gonna kill me. Command something. We call everything Command something. But basically, what we've done is we have a weekly snippet that shows the behind the scenes efforts of the team in preparation for game day. We had it in training camp, showing some of our rookies onboarding, and it goes into their personal lives, their mindsets, interviews their families, and it has driven a ton more viewership on YouTube. It's allowed people to click through to participate with us as ticket buyers and season ticket members. We're seeing it be lucrative for the business and engaging for our fans, and we got that info through social listening. And then the last one is something that's more structured. We actually created fan communities that we regularly tap. We have fan ambassadors that are longtime fans, some new fans, but that are avid fans of our organization, intentionally diverse with different perspectives and backgrounds. We also have our fan captains, which is a legacy program that we pulled forward that pre-existed me. And we've kind of melded those two into a ready focus group. On demand, and they're insightful. They have some historical and institutional knowledge that we don't necessarily have because so many of us are new in the organization. And those three avenues are fantastic. And then I've got my own little secret stuff that I keep to myself, but I'll put it this way. I've curated a set of perspectives that are all across the board. People who love the old name, people who thought the old name was racist, people who love the direction of the team, people who think we've ruined everything important and historical about the organization, and all different age groups, a lot local, but many from around the world and out of market as well. I have my own sort of curated group of folks that I get insights from on a regular basis just to keep my ear to the ground as an executive.
It's got to be kind of a blessing and a curse that in this industry, I'll call it, the fans are very, very passionate, right? People aren't quite as passionate about their toothpaste or, other products that they might engage with on a day-to-day basis. But your favorite sports team, like, the ones that, I'm a big Yankee fan. Let's talk about the Yankees. We won't talk about any other football teams, but I might write stuff on social media that's like, I hate them. They're the worst team in the world. And that doesn't actually mean that. It means that I love them so much that I'm angry about whatever, right? Yeah. So that's got to be tough to really, as you're talking about sifting through the social media data, like, so much passion can be such a benefit, but also probably a challenge.
Yeah. overwhelming. When it's directed towards you, abrasive.
Right.
But good, but good. I'd rather have passion than apathy any day. I'll tell you that much. You can
Yeah.
build a business on passion. It's hard to try to generate that passion. No, but you're spot on. Fan is short for fanatic, right?
Mhm.
Fanaticism is not rational. That's hard for me. Like, basically a McKinsey robot, right? Like, so it's difficult for me to understand non-rational decision making, but it is our business. And I think it's actually a beautiful thing. There are very few places where people can let their hearts and their emotions free as they can in professional sports, and especially our sport, because it's got a level of, we'll call it aggression to it, that allows for that in more ways than others. That said, I do think you need good calibration to separate the noise from everything else. Part of it is the timing of when you do social listening. If you do your social listening right after a really embarrassing loss where everyone's inflamed and upset, that's not actually going to be a good data set. But if you do it on the Tuesday after that, or the Wednesday as you start to build up to game week the next week, you're going to get a slightly more accurate view of where things are at. If you take a fan survey, just like an employee survey, if you take an employee survey during a really busy week, people are not going to be happy with their jobs. Same thing with taking a fan survey. It's important to think about the timing and the sampling. I think those are the two things that are critical to try to get decision quality insights from a fanatic customer base that you want to remain that way.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you've talked about some of the like maybe smaller secret groups or the one-on-one conversations that you're having with people, but how do you really scale feedback? Is it through some of those other channels you mentioned, or?
Yeah, I don't know that we've solved that yet. I don't know that we've solved that. I think we are relying on very smart and thoughtful sampling in order to get good insights. So even for our rebrand, we've probably talked to 20,000 people over the course of the rebrand, in an individualized way, maybe even more than that. Our fan base is 12 million people, right? So we're still not even scratching the surface of a comprehensive scaled view from our fans. So that part remains a challenge, but we rely on really smart sampling. External partners help us with that. Our own internal folks help us with that. The other thing we can leverage that does have scale are the tools that the NFL provides. They do a voice of the fan survey that comes to every team. It's in the same format. We're able to benchmark ourselves against others, and we're able to see our fan experience, how it's trended year over year. And that's at scale. That's everybody who attends a game. That's everyone who attends a game. The other thing you can do is you can bring in a third party to do a brand health assessment. Those are good cleanup and healthy things. As you onboard new leaders in those areas, it's healthy to do a refresh of those to understand what's driving brand affinity, what's deteriorating fan affinity, and that there you can get a little bit of scale on things. And then we actually have partnered with Qualtrics as well to do our own voice of the fan. That's a little more customized to ourselves, that can run a few regression models, so that not only do we hear what our fans think about different aspects of the guest experience on game day, but which ones are really driving behavior, repurchase behavior, season ticket renewals, and things like that. And they actually are very fast. There's a little bit of a lag time on the league's data. Qualtrics has stuff to us almost in real time. And so that's incredibly helpful to us. So yeah, those are the ways that we start to get scale, but I don't know that we've solved it at all. So, I welcome thoughts.
I mean, that's a big challenge because people are, have an aversion to surveys, or,
Right.
Everyone kind of has their own preferences on how they want to give feedback. But the NFL Voice of the Fan survey sounds really interesting in that, how much does that comparative data play into your decision making, like with the other teams that you're looking at or other parts of the league? Like,
Yep.
how much do you use that information?
I'll say this. One of the things that it does that's very, very basic, it's like I get to call somebody who's doing well in an area where we're struggling. That's the great thing. It's like, look, I see the NFL highlighting, and these are real ones. These are great organizations that are performing incredibly well that I esteem and the presidents of those organizations are some of my thought partners: Miami Dolphins, San Francisco 49ers, what they've done on their guest experience, Minnesota Vikings, what they've done on their guest experience. And when I see, their fan experience trending up, when I see them knocking it out of the park on food and beverage where we may have struggled in the past, I give them a call. I call Tom, I call Andrew, I call Al, and say, guys, what are you doing? How are you structured? What are the big initiatives for you? How do you look at your budget? How do you look at your CapEx budget, your OpEx budget? And we can have that free-flowing conversation because we are invested in one another's success within the NFL. And that's one of the great things about my position. We're competitors on the field, but we're cheering for each other off of it. And so it does that at minimum. Beyond that, the NFL does a really nice job of bringing us best practices. So even without me reaching out, they'll be able to share in our, monthly or whatever they are. I think they're monthly, maybe quarterly president's calls, where I'll get some of those insights and I can bring those to my team and say, have we thought about this? Have we thought about this? And usually the answer is like, because I have a pretty damn good team here. Usually the answer is like, yeah, we actually talked to those folks 3 months ago, Jason. Here's what we're doing with it. Here's where it applies to us. Here's where it doesn't. So it drives, I guess what I'm saying is it drives collaboration. It drives collaboration, and it drives us to look outside of the building for new ideas. And that's a good thing.
I love that. That's awesome. It's a little bit like I don't want to imagine the teams collaborating behind the scenes.
Right.
They're fighting.
Right.
But I'll let that part go. It actually sounds quite nice.
Yeah, it's a little bit sacrilegious, right? But yeah, it's the way it is.
It makes sense. And I've heard people talk this way in other industries too, just about how collaboration is the new competition, right? Like getting together to share ideas. The only way to kind of get out of your comfort zone and what you're used to doing and the way things have always been done is to get ideas from outside. Right. So talking to people, asking for help. I think that a lot of companies out there who typically compete are now getting together and sharing ideas in a similar way, which is just good for everybody, right? It's good for the consumer or good for the fan.
And I also think it's important to hire that way too. I've intentionally constructed a diverse leadership team here, and that's demographically as well as experientially. So yes, demographically, we are one of the most diverse in the NFL. We're 40% women, 50% people of color on my senior leadership team. And that's intentional to connect with our fan base, to mirror the demographics of this region, to allow us to have a plethora of perspectives informed by identity that help us make better decisions. Even if we have more debate, we make better decisions, and that's empirically proven. On the same token, I want experiential diversity. I don't want everybody who's been in the NFL for their entire careers, because we're going to get the same old recycled ideas. And we're trying to rebuild a historic fan base. We need different ideas. We need to do things differently than they were done in the past. And so, I've brought people in from entertainment writ large, from hospitality, from other sports. I've brought people in from baseball, brought people in from politics and the nonprofit sector, brought people from the agency side of sports, not the non-team side of sports. My head of creative and content came from the Wall Street Journal, ran branded content for the Wall Street Journal. So bringing these folks together creates more productive debate, more fresh ideas that come into play, more questioning of the status quo, which is good in of itself. The simple question of why do we do things that way, which happens a lot with our leadership team, can be very powerful questions. And so I think in addition to looking outside of the building, you need to look inside the building and how you're comprised. And remember that diversity drives better business decisions and better business outcomes.
Well, and I think that ties back too to what you were saying about just being a data-driven organization, because then you can challenge the status quo. You're not just changing things for the sake of changing them. Right. There's a new idea and there's a reason to make the change based on the data. Right. And you're going to end up with a smarter outcome versus just, hey, let's do something out of the box and break something that's working.
Yeah. You're hitting at something really important, Jen, is that when you want to do things differently or when you want to do something at all, change management is really important. And the motivation of your workforce to execute that strategy is actually really important. And data can be one of those motivators. You always need a why behind what you're doing. And If we get into something and it's hard or it's more complex than we thought, that why tied back to the data is that additional motivation that can get us over the hump. And I think that's quite powerful, a motivator at times. I would say that the other thing that you're hitting on is the importance of change management in general. It's actually really important for us to think not just about the best idea, but the feasibility of implementing that idea, the way that it flows through the budget, the timeline to ROI. And we do have to think about change management, execution risk when you're doing some of these things. Because the best and brightest and most creative idea, if there's not buy-in across the organization or enough buy-in for people to be willing to execute it with the level of excellence, then you're dead in the water. And that's part of what we have to focus on when we do these efforts.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you have the benefit of having a team with diverse ideas and experiences. And there's probably a ton of great things that you could see value in doing, and you can only do a portion of them. So being able to make those decisions strategically is important. And so I'm curious, like, are there some examples of some changes that you guys have implemented as a result of the research or the fan feedback that you've collected?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we did after we did our first round of fan research is we completely revamped our season ticket member packages. They used to be pretty straightforward, price, season tickets, pay extra for parking. We looked at the various areas where we were sold through, places where we were more thin, and the season ticket member base had ebbed over time. It wasn't in a great, healthy place when we got here. We've since more than doubled our season ticket member base since we've been here.
Wow.
And coming out of COVID at a time when that's been very difficult to do, but that came from seemingly small changes, but a lot of them that came from fan feedback. One example is we have not one season ticket member package, but 3. One that's structured around families and has a bunch of amenities and extras that are year round that extend well beyond the game day experience. It's a family day at Busch Gardens, at the amusement park that's reserved for Commanders fans with a Commanders sort of tailgate rally there. There's a package for the Ultra fans that allowed them to have access to some of our alumni at an event in the stadium, to get on the field after a game and do like a little combine type exercise. Like, these are additional benefits that matter to folks. We have a business package that allowed people to sit with me and our chief creative officer to talk in detail about the rebrand. For the Ultra fans, actually, we also had a fantasy football draft where they were allowed to have a suite at FedEx Field to do their fantasy football draft with their friends. So these are things that carry year-round value, that keep people engaged with us beyond the few games a year that we have in that venue. And that drove additional season ticket member sales. Another thing that we did is for our club level, where we had historical issues selling season tickets, we just made food all-inclusive and parking all-inclusive. It's like, look, if we need more value, you're saying you need more value? All right, have it. Here it is. And that's in addition to incremental things that we did around the building and pricing. I think overall we reduced pricing by about 5% across the entire venue. And the club level, this was our way of doing that. We felt priced okay, but the value wasn't there. And so we added some new things into value. And then there were some new ideas that came from our fans. We converted some of our end zone club areas to these tabletops where you can order food, where you can have a drink. It's almost like a little bistro table. Those sold through within a few days. We sold out of all of those in season tickets within a few days. We're just trying to find places in the venue within NFL rules to create more of them. And our fans wanted a more casual environment. This caters to some of the younger fans that are looking for as much of a social experience as they are a football experience. And that's something the entire industry needs to take notice of. This is becoming an event where people want to network and connect with others, engage on social media during the event, even when physically present, as much as they want to engage the game itself in a traditional fashion. And so We're going to find more and more ways to do that at FedEx Field. And most certainly with our new venue, these insights are going to go into a state-of-the-art next generation design that makes that sort of engagement with the additional layer of advanced technologies by which people want to engage the games are the default experience at our new venue.
But I mean, you've got me convinced. Like, I'm about to buy some season tickets. I want to do my
come on over. You're on the dark side right now. You need to come on over.
I know. I'm stuck. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'll ever get off the dark side, but we've been through too much. But I'm thinking about, I did a study, gosh, it's probably 15 years ago, worked with a baseball writer, Jason Stark, to do some feedback about the experience of baseball games. Is it too long? It's too slow?
Yep.
That was the feedback that we were kind of getting from fans. And I've not seen a lot of that sort of creative experience happening. I mean, there's some, again, I'm a Yankee fan. So like there's, kids areas now, and, you can watch the game on the TV while the kids play. And so there's some of those family experiences popping up here and there. I think Citi Field does some good stuff with that as well. But, it just seems like there is a desire for more of that experience that isn't necessarily about the game. You want to be there. You want to feel the energy, and you want to watch the players and everything, but there's more to it. And like understanding what people are asking for and delivering it is, I mean, that's the name of the game.
You are spot on, Jen. And one of the things I learned in my engagement with fans is that our most avid fans, those who have been with this team for generations, they're with us because our organization and Burgundy and Gold are a source of powerful memories for them. And I like to say to our staff that we are in the memory making business. The experience at FedEx Field, the engagement with our team on social platforms, the events that we do in the community, supporting the community through our charitable foundation or our players making appearances. These are about creating lifelong memories by which our fans and people in this community connect to one another, where they are able to, it's like stories of, a child connecting with their dad. And it happened through skins games, back in the day. And the only moments that they had, a tender moment or a hug or whatever it was from, some classic old school archetype dad who didn't show emotion was at the games. And our experience created the platform for this very important aspect of their relationship. Those are the types of stories that I heard over and over again. And we are now focused on creating an environment that is efficient. You get in, get out, as seamless as you can. Doesn't take forever to get your food. We're on a journey to that, like every stadium is, but make it efficient so that you can focus on the game and connecting with the people around you and having an experience that you remember in a positive way for life. Something that feels almost magical, especially if there's a win associated with it. And that's what you're getting at. And that's the power of the NFL. And that's the power, that's a privilege of what we get to do.
I love that. That's amazing. And so, all of the changes that you're making and these experiences you're creating, the time you're spending with fans, how do you close the loop on that? How do you get back to fans and say, thanks for sharing this with us. Here's the changes that we've made as a result of what you've shared with us. And then how is that received?
We don't do that well, actually. It's something we need to do a lot better. I was actually talking to my team about that today. We're actually bringing on a new chief communications officer, a dope woman. She's amazing. Gosh, I can't wait for her to start. But we were actually talking about that today in a meeting, that we actually don't do enough of going back and saying this was due to this and tying them together. We've been in the mode of like, let's just show and prove. Let's go do it. And then people will notice. And we have had that. Our fans are very active on social platforms, and they'll show it. They'll say they listened, they want it. We asked for this and they did this. They'll do a little bit of it for us. But I actually think, Jen, you're right. And we could do actually a lot more ourselves. And we don't actually right now have a plan or process for that. But it's something I'm keen that we develop over the next few months, because we have done a ton. That's been solely based on what our fans have told us. And it's resonating for us. It's doing well in the business. We're besides the season ticket member growth, we're number 3 in new suite sales in the NFL into this year. Sponsorship is up about 30% year over year, almost 30% year over year, despite the headlines about the organization and its past. And a lot of that is due to taking fan feedback seriously and getting a real pulse on the fans. But there's more we can do to engage with them and get back. It's a good push.
I don't think that's a unique challenge, right? Like, I think a lot of companies struggle with that. Like, it's just in the day-to-day grind, right? Like, okay, get the information, get the data, make the changes, make those decisions, move on to the next.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Keep improving.
Too much going on. If the day were 26 hours, maybe. Right, maybe.
Is that all you need is 2 more hours?
I don't know. Probably just need to sleep. If I had 2 more hours, I need to sleep, take a damn nap. That's what I need to do.
Exactly. I think we all need that. Well, I know there are some Commanders fans listening to this show today, for sure. I'm sure there are others that I don't know about, and this will be a good way for them to hear some of the work you've been doing. I really appreciate you coming and sharing that with us today. It's been awesome.
It's really my pleasure. Really my pleasure. And to our fans out there, thank you so much. If you're a neutral, we should be your team. All right, we're doing things the right way. We're exciting. We got a better quarterback than Jenn's team, and we're ready to ball. I'm playing with you, but no, I am grateful to you, and hail to the Commanders.
Amazing. I mean, you're not wrong. Well, thank you again for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening in. Come back next week. We'll be talking to Will Wu from West Monroe, and we will see you then.